afternoon and welcome to the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 20 years of profiling excellence in government IT mission programs. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders and using information technology to improve healthcare and healthcare services. With me on today's show are Stephen Posnack, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Technology Policy; Patrick Newbold, Chief Information Officer and Director, Office of Information Technology, Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services; Bill Tinston, Director, Federal Electronic Health Record Modernization Office, which is a joint VA and Department of Defense organization; Chandra Mohan, Acting Chief Information Officer and CTO, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration; Wes Jackson, Senior Specialist Solution Architect for AI at Red Hat; and Greg Carl, Principal Technologist at Pure Storage. We're talking about healthcare technology. Stephen, we're going to start with you. The last I heard, you all had combined a lot of horsepower into one organization. I think it was the CTO, the CDO, AI, etc. And you're off and running. Give us a state as to where you are at this point and bringing all that to bear.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the question and thanks for having me. So as you mentioned, there was a reorganization last year, almost about this time. So we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
And we've gotten it. Thank you. We've got new leadership, obviously, with the change of administration as well. And so even though things have been moving quite quickly over the past 4 or 5 months, our deputy secretary just got sworn in this past week. And my new boss, the new national coordinator / deputy Assistant Secretary for Technology Policy, is now in place as well, Dr. Tom Keene. And so, we're working across the department. We're getting into detail in terms of their priorities. And I think you'll see a lot more progress going forward in the second half of the year.
Really looking forward to hearing about some of that. Patrick, over at CMS, a lot of activity going on over there. Such a massive and very important organization. Of course, part of the bigger ecosystem. Give us a status to how things are going over there for you.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your 20th anniversary. But let me tell you maybe a quick story about what's going on at CMS around technology and how we are using it to help people live healthier lives. A few years ago, we started moving many of our systems and applications to something called the cloud. So back in 2015, we only had about 13% of our systems in the cloud. Today, we have over 80% of our systems applications in the cloud, and what this has helped us do is run our systems faster, cost less, and become more secure. So I think that the work that's happening at CMS is helping us and some of our goals of making doctors and patients share information more easily, and you're always looking for better ways to improve. But so a lot of cooking at CMS nowadays, but proud that we're tapping into the power of technology to deliver on our programs.
Hats off to all of you. And of course, as a former CIO, I love to hear that. And with our aging population, really do appreciate everything that you all are doing over there. Bill, how about at the Electronic Health Records Modernization Office? A lot of dancing going on over there, as I understand it, a lot of activity going on over there. People, for the most part, I think, understand that flow from DOD to VA. But yeah, give us a top line as to how things are going.
Things are actually going really well, Luke. When you think about why the firm exists, or Federal Electronic Health Record Modernization, it's because 6 years ago, some insightful leaders in both departments, DOD and VA, realized that instead of looking at healthcare from a technology lens or from a departmental lens, we ought to take it from a people lens, right? We create veterans at DOD, so we're talking about the same people. So they created the Federal Electronic Health Record Modernization Office to shepherd the efforts of the two departments in delivering the same health record to support people. So we can create a record about the person, not who delivered the care or where the care was delivered. And then in the process of doing that, we created a record that extends those capabilities to other federal healthcare providers. We've brought Coast Guard in, we've brought NOAA in, we have other partners that we expect to bring in, including the Armed Forces Retirement Home and others as we move forward. So we make sure that we're doing it together. And probably, and I'll drop this now and we'll probably talk about it again later, probably the biggest accomplishment that we've achieved in this space in the last few years is the delivery of the single record, the federal electronic health record, to the North Chicago James A. Lovell Federal Healthcare Center, which is a joint VA-led joint healthcare center that supports the Navy Accession Center at Great Lakes, as well as the veteran population around North Chicago, Waukegan. So they used to work on two systems. They now work on a single system. We asked them 15 years ago to deliver create an integrated care environment for veterans and military beneficiaries alike. We didn't give them the tools. We've now brought them the tools, and they're doing a fantastic job up there.
Hats off to that, and that is absolutely huge. I'm sure that's something you're looking to propagate across the community.
Absolutely.
Chandra, how about at your administration? Smaller administration under HHS, but I like to say small but mighty. Super important, that's for sure. Talk to us about what's going on over there in regards to the implementation of technology for that particular mission.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks. Appreciate connecting back with you after many years now.
Yes.
SAMHSA is probably less well known than some of our other counterparts, other operating divisions like FDA or CMS or CDC, etc. So we are SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. So mental health is our middle name, so to speak, as we say. So we address the critical issues, across the nation on matters such as substance abuse and mental health across all age segments, across all gender, race, and ethnicity, etc. It affects practically every population, every corner of the country. We work with the state and local bodies to engage with all the affected individuals to provide services for prevention of substance abuse, and then treatment if there is a need later on. And then the substance abuse and mental health, there is a cause and effect relationship between the two. We don't know which one leads to the other. And then eventually there is the recovery aspect of it as well. But more recently, I think in the last 3 years, we also took responsibility for setting up the crisis hotline, the 988 crisis hotline. It started initially as a suicide prevention hotline, then it has evolved to address all the mental health and other kinds of issues as well as part of the same crisis hotline. And we have professionals, and it's a 24/7 hotline. So we manage all of that, and that's all I want to say at this point in time. But
Sure, it's such a critical aspect of our culture and our community. Sadly, increasing throughout the country, but we really appreciate all the focus to help these folks that are very much in need. Wes, let's talk about Red Hat, and where in the world does Red Hat fit into healthcare? Well, everywhere, right? I mean, there's no question about it, particularly in the AI space. Give us the top line as to where Red Hat is focusing their attention in this sector.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Red Hat has been along the journey with a lot of our customers for a very long time, and as AI has really rushed into the mainstream, I think when everybody saw ChatGPT, everybody started to get their head around what you could do with AI and started exploring. And we've been working with our federal healthcare customers for quite a while now, not only to adopt the technologies that they would need to actually implement AI solutions, but also just to kind of think through policy. It's one thing to imagine, okay, I bet we could launch this AI tool that would solve some problem. But when you want to launch that AI tool to solve that problem for hundreds of thousands or millions of people who are depending on the federal government to provide them a consistent and stable and reliable service, you really need to think through, are we fielding something that might be biased? Are we fielding something that might have some sorts of unpredictability to it? And so I think that the policy has kind of evolved along with the technology capability. And where we're at right now is really helping customers think about what are the most important things to do. It's don't always equate to the things that maybe would make the news, but just things like reducing the cognitive load on clinicians at the VA, reducing error rate among IT workers that might have middle of the night things to do that AI could be maybe doing for them. And so thinking through problems like that, and again, just kind of working those problems toward that foundation that the customers have been laying for the last 10 or 15 years.
Certainly taking some of those sort of rote tasks off these healthcare officials so that they can professionals that they can really focus on the job at hand. Greg, how about at Pure Storage? Once again, I think about Pure Storage. How does this fit into it? Well, there's an incredible amount of storage associated to healthcare. And of course, we know Pure Storage is way bigger than a storage company.
Absolutely. And once again, thanks for having me back again, Luke. Always great talking with you. So what's great about that is even storage is in our name. Our focus is around data, and especially in healthcare, focusing on data lifecycle, right? Data lifecycle has always been a huge component of healthcare, whether it be record retention, accessibility, sharing of information across agencies. So what we found, and it's proven to be true, is that agencies, especially the medical industry, are going to be facing a paramount challenge. The amount of data that's being generated, duplicated, copy data management. If you think of things like AI, that's more and more copies of data. How are they going to manage that data at scale and give a seamless, simplistic way to manage all that? So interesting stat I've heard him talking about is, the industry's kind of thought that we're going to be generating around 394 zettabytes of data by 2028. And right now, today, we are closer to zero than we are to that number. Right. So how are we going to be able to manage that at scale and give the same consistency of operations if I'm operating in the cloud, if I'm operating on-prem? Can I have the same experience for clinicians? Can I have the same access for medical records, no matter where they are within their life cycle, if they're in service or they are retired, or maybe their family? How can they have that same experience no matter where they go? So it's really focused about automating and giving that same experience for data management. But storage is in the name. We do it through infrastructure, but our real value is simplifying operations.
Yeah, and you think about it, 2028, you blink and it's going to be here. There's no question about that.
Exactly.
Really do appreciate that, Bill. Let's talk about a specific example that you'd like to highlight in your joint organization over there.
Yeah. So George was just talking about data and how much there is. So what we're doing is bringing primarily DoD and VA together with a common record about the patient, right? We're in the middle of transitioning to a cloud environment. Had a conversation about it yesterday. And just a portion of what we're bringing over to the cloud was 3 petabytes of data, right? So lots of data. The other thing that we're doing is we're tying, right? We're creating a single record. So we've got that longitudinal record about the patient across their experience through the DoD and the VA. But what we're also doing is bringing community care in. We've created something called the Joint Health Information Exchange, where DoD, VA, Coast Guard, NOAA have become the world's largest exchanger of health information. When you look at a chart of all of the data being exchanged through the various national and regional health information exchanges, you can't see the other participants if DoD and VA and the Joint Health Information Exchange are in the chart. You have to take them off to change the scale so that you can see where other people are. So tremendous amount of data. We bring it all together, creating probably the most comprehensive record available any place. So it's what we're creating here is extraordinary. But I heard Wes talking about, I think it was Wes, maybe it was George, talking about what do you do with all that data? How do you reduce the cognitive load? So it was Wes. So we're looking at bringing technology in to it's called seamless exchange, but to bring technology in to do that deduplication and present the relevant information, because that's what happens. Everyone wants all the information, but how do you process all that information? How does a physician or a clinician of any sort process all that information? So we're bringing this seamless exchange in where we deduplicate the information, we bring provenance in, so you know where the information came from. And we're finding that the deduplication takes care of about 80% of the data. And so the promise of where we go with this is extraordinary. And I have a personal example that I like to use. I help with my parents' healthcare sometimes as an advocate and even occasionally a caregiver. I recall a year or two ago, I was in the hospital with my mother. She was having an issue she couldn't communicate about. I was talking to a doctor, and I knew we were failing when I heard this. And I brought something that had happened in the past to the doctor's attention. And she said to me, well, I guess I'll have to go back and dig through the notes and see if I can find something on that. Well, we're not doing the right job as information technology providers to the healthcare complex. If we have physicians who are spending their time listening to family and then saying they have to go back and dig through the record, we ought to be bringing the relevant, pertinent information to them as simply as possible so that we can use their highly trained minds and experience to help our family members and deliver the quality healthcare that we need.
Amen to that, and I really do appreciate the focus on that deduplication. Really important. Stephen, how about a top line specific example that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, it's a great follow on as well. So, for folks that aren't familiar with our office, we really sit at the intersection of clinical informatics, health data standards, and health policy. So we always kind of have a mix of all three of those in different proportions depending on our work. Really, in the 2010s, we started with electronic health record adoption. So kind of getting that digital footprint out across the country. Almost 100% of hospitals have electronic health records now. Well over 80% of office-based ambulatory oriented physicians as well. And so, when you have quote unquote the phones, you need the networks to really make things work. And so we invested in the network connectivity as well, mostly as a result of what's called the 21st Century Cures Act, which was passed right at the end of the Obama administration at the end of 2016. And that required our office to focus on what's called the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement. I know we all like to speak in acronyms, so that's called TEFCA. And so for that is really about network governance, reciprocity, data use parameters, privacy and security. And so, we've been working on that the past 6-7 years and have really started to see, network participation ramp up. So that's one thing that we're continue to be excited about.
Sounds fantastic, and a piece of gluing the ecosystem together, and we really do appreciate it. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about IT and the federal healthcare ecosystem, if you will. I want to come over to Wes and ask you, Wes, to you're in the catbird seat right there. You see a lot of activity going across all these various agencies. Give us an example of a program you'd like to highlight.
Going back to the reducing cognitive load topic that we were just discussing in the last segment, VA is implementing just such a program right now, which is really interesting. If you go to the doctor, a long time ago, you would go to the doctor and they would just talk to you, and then later on they would write their notes. I remember the doctor leaving the exam room and they would go speak into a recorder for somebody to write those notes down later. And nowadays, when you go, they spend a lot of time just typing on the computer and not even looking at you. And the VA decided, hey, that's not what we really want. We want the physicians and clinicians actually talking to the patient and dealing with the patient, interacting directly.
Great idea. That always bothered me.
That's right. And so they're implementing, obviously with patient consent, an ambient listening solution that basically it's an AI-enabled solution that has a recording and a transcript of the visit, and then it's able to go in and weed out all of the small talk, how are you this weekend, and how are the kids, that kind of stuff is probably not going in the clinical notes. And then what's left over, it can actually take and make a valid clinical note, something that the next physician, next clinician would actually make some sense of. And again, not having all the chit chat. If certain diseases are mentioned, certain conditions, certain prescriptions, it can even summarize for the clinician later. So after the patient has left, hey, it looks like you decided you wanted to prescribe, this medication. Is this the dosage you want? It can automate all those things and really reduce the time that it takes to get that kind of work done. And also, it's not just doing these things on its own. It's an agentic workflow, we say in the AI group, but it's not without the human in the loop. And so the human clinician is still there to say, nope, that's not what I wanted, or that's not what we said, or no, let's not put this in the notes. That was just something that this person said about their father or whatever. So it's reducing the amount of time that they spend actually working on the computer by a lot. An advancement on that tool, once it's fully implemented, will be able to do things like go into the notes. Bill was mentioning that his mother's physician had to say, well, I'll go into the notes later and come back with that. Well, there's no reason an AI can't just already surface that information and say, well, look, I went into the notes in the last 2 seconds, and here's the relevant information you were probably looking for. So that kind of stuff that gets people out of doing what we think of as non-credentialed work. Like, you didn't go to medical school to sit here and do paperwork all of your life. And so let's take that off your plate. Let the AI do that kind of stuff. So the AI is doing something that's not going to make the news. Nobody's going to say, oh, this AI did something to save somebody's life, but it did free the clinician up to save somebody's life or to save somebody's day, whichever the case may be.
Fantastic use case, and certainly probably much more accurate, right? I love this idea. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I look forward to it getting fully implemented, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Patrick, how about over at CMS? Can you give us an example of a program that you'd like to highlight?
And thanks, Luke. So we're looking to really make it easier for health information to move securely and quickly across our ecosystem. So right now, data lives in several different places. Imagine that, across silos, but imagine being able to use technology, technology ecosystem, if you will, to help connect everything. Like kind of like your iPhone connects with apps. So to be able to help patients and doctors and our insurance programs share information more easily and securely. So one of the things that we're working on is updating our big data system and consolidating the many of the data lakes we have within our ecosystem at CMS. And we have a system that we call internally the Integrated Data Repository, or IDR. So this is intended to bring together the data sets and from the many sources across our ecosystem, so we can make better decisions. And an example of that is we just finalized bringing in a source of data from the Veterans Affairs, the Health Administration, where we can now use some of our analytics tools with that data in our repository, and we can see if there's some improper payments or some enrollments that are counted as double. So being able to have that data in a common repository and having the ability to use analytics and some of our investments in artificial intelligence is giving us the ability to take a good look at our programs to ensure that we are administering them in the most efficient manner. So highlighting that this system that we're continue to upgrade, but also the business decisions across CMS to say, okay, all these separate data systems, we have to get them integrated with the system. It is allowing us to untap data, which is so important in the healthcare space, and I think will help contribute to that big vision of allowing that connected data view for those who we serve.
Connect it and integrate it, and then all of a sudden you unlock it. So we really do appreciate that. A lot of great work going on over there. Greg, how about a Pure Storage? Would you like to give us an example? Once again, you all are striped across these various components and agencies and departments. Give us a great
Yeah.
example, a juicy example. We got one where we're dying for another one.
Yeah, so we do a lot with HHS, and we're great for their partnership because you talk about a lot of data. HHS generates more data than I,
Makes my
I,
head
I
spin
would
just thinking about it.
I would argue, they're right up there with the DOE with the amount of data. So managing that at scale, we talked about cloud adoption and being able to have visibility. I think that's the biggest thing is once we talking about doing more with less, we talk about things like integrating AI, especially when it comes to research. We start to have these challenges, like you mentioned, data silos. Well, we have to consolidate. Well, okay, yeah, you can consolidate, but did you consolidate the right way? Did we move to a platform that gives me visibility? So one thing we've done, HHS, is as they've moved out of, using AI as search, moving into reasoning and having better, extensibility with these tool sets, they're really realizing that, AI as a tool is not necessarily the skill. So enhancing clinicians' capabilities, enhancing researchers' capabilities by having a completely integrated data plane so that we're taking, I talk about research, the term we use is faster time to science, right? So we don't have, really smart folks waiting around for something to process. We're getting more iterations, more capabilities with data sets, and more consistent sharing all the way across. So when I think about, the capabilities of what we've done just from a data consolidation lens, and now we can have conversations of, okay, now what's next? Can we have a conversation about the predictability of cost, of where this data wants to reside? So it's a very interesting time if we start getting out of the traditional storage lens of, okay, yep, I have boxes here and I have boxes here and I have some virtual boxes out in the cloud. I now can look holistically as a cloud operating model, and now my data is king. Even going to things like we've talked about zero trust in the past. We always joke and say it should have been called, data centric architecture. It's really all about data, and that's one thing that we've helped our customers realize is once we get out of that lens of traditional infrastructure management, more focused on data, if we can give them that experience of invisible infrastructure, like the cloud, right? The data can now have the same value and same pertinence no matter where it is in its life cycle.
Absolutely. Up the value chain, all of a sudden, things start to materialize that one would never even imagine. So we really do appreciate that, Greg. Chandra, how about over in your organization? Give us an example of something that you've got cooking over there that you'd like to highlight.
Sure, yeah. Thanks. So there are many great applications, many great approaches we take to deliver what we call care continuum. Care continuum as a certain individual transitions from one phase of distress to another, such as a mental health to maybe substance abuse to, and then there is a treatment option and hopefully eventually to recovery. So we are there all the way across. But I also want to talk a little bit about the 988 program that we set up, the crisis hotline. So this was set up by, I believe, an act of Congress. So this got set up as a separate program in 2022. So just in these last 3 years, we've been fielding calls from across the nation. It's a 24/7 line hotline, and it's about 15 million calls thus far, and some veterans included and all the others, and they have a reason to call us. And as you pointed out, Luke, before, it's not a record that one needs to be very proud of, but that's the state of reality. And we are happy that we are there to support, provide that infrastructure and other care support because it's needed. So this whole 988 is people call from cell phones, and typically you locate them via their area code and stuff. But what we did was several years ago, we worked with one of the wireless carriers to work in a kind of a geolocation based on cell tower signals and so forth. So we had our own geo routing tables, and that worked very successfully. And then some of the others also volunteered to join us. And this was before FCC even put out their policy
911 stuff.
regulations.
Yep.
Yeah. So now they utilize some of the findings that we provided, and then they issued the 988 related regulations. So we ended up being the precursor for the 988, the FCC policy there as well. And so what this allows you to do is, regardless of where you are in the country, you may have a 202 cell phone, and it doesn't always it shouldn't always triangulate you to Washington area. You may be out in, I don't know, Arizona or Texas or somewhere, but so the geo routing becomes even more vital, because we are now able to map that to the service providers that are in that area. In some cases, they need to be rushed to the caller because of the severity of the situation. So all this mapping allows us to reach the caregivers quickly and efficiently to where the care needs to be delivered very quickly.
I love the dual. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say this has caught the attention of a lot of other folks as well. So we are not just being here; we've been approached by poison control people, some of the other emergency care providers as well, to say, okay, can they duplicate how we accomplished what we did? And so that's very heartening. So just
Yeah,
want to put it out
I
there.
was just going to point out, love the dual use capability that you're exercising there. That's absolutely awesome. So hats off to you on again on a very, very super important area of this country. All right, we're going to talk about priorities. Stephen, I'm going to start with you. I know there's always the job jar is completely full. We're, approximately halfway through 2025. What's the top couple of priorities that you all are focusing on that you absolutely want to get done in 2025?
Yeah, lots of things going on. So always the top priorities, and then the top priorities, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So we've got new leadership coming on board. Speaking of top priorities, so it's a little bit of a work in progress for us. But I would
Uh-huh.
say, executive branch wide will be engaged in the analyses required for deregulatory actions. So really focus on areas where we can spur competition, remove regulatory barriers, clean up a lot of other things, that perhaps have seen their day from a regulatory perspective. And so, that's happening across the board. We're looking at that as well in terms of our specific mission. And then really closer to home, we are focused on care enabling interoperability and its connection to the Secretary's Make America Healthy Again, agenda. And so, we'll be lining things up across the year and continuing to implement now on new leadership priorities.
Looking forward to all that. Bill, top couple of priorities for you all.
Yeah, the number one thing that we're trying to accomplish at the firm is support the VA in their accelerated EHR deployment plans, because that fundamentally changes what can be done in the federal healthcare space. When you have the two largest healthcare systems in the country, DoD and VA, operating with a single record, it opens up the possibilities of what those two health systems, how they can interact and how they can pivot to the patient and support each other in supporting the Americans that those two systems support. Remember, they're often the very same people who start their journey in the military and then complete their journey as a VA beneficiary. So getting that single record across the federal healthcare space is the most important thing we can do in the upcoming year. There's 100 other things that we're working on, but that is the number one thing. That is what we are laser focused on, is how do we, the bigger team that the firm represents, help the VA get that done so that the leaders can make different decisions about how we deliver healthcare, irrespective of IT limitations.
Hats off to all of you for the laser focus. And if there is ever a definition of game changer, that is absolutely it, right? That is the holy grail that I know that entire community is very anxious to see happen. So we're really looking forward to that. Greg, how about a Pure Storage top priority for you all in 2025?
Yeah, Luke, we had some great announcements last week at Pure Accelerate, and it's really leaning into this concept of helping our customers go on the path of creating an enterprise data cloud. And what that means is transparency of infrastructure. automation of workflows, integration with external automation workflows. So being very centered around their data to now we can now deliver actual data outcomes. We're no longer talking about boxes and data centers or how we're going to have to grow this over the next 3 to 5 years. It's now a matter of I have this resource available to me. I can now treat this as the public cloud because these data sets, as they're growing at an exponential rate, sometimes the cloud prices it out. It becomes too much to bear from a cost perspective. So how can we rationalize that? How can we have more transparency and cost efficiency? It's one of the things we're helping customers with. Another part of that is we're focusing a lot with our partners, doing a lot with Red Hat as far as modern virtualization. It's things like, as we're talking about AI-driven initiatives, and I say it every day, is guys, we're talking about AI. It's not going to be running on virtual machines. It's running in containers. So let's have a more modernized conversation about how you want to deploy that at scale. Another huge announcement we had is being able to manage data sets that folks, oh, you can't manage this amount of data. Well, we just announced our Exa platform, which is a very exciting high performance computing, but large scale data set model that's designed for many from large scale hyperscalers. So I'm working with folks like Meta and the other large public cloud hyperscalers, all the way down to our largest agencies here in federal to saying, hey, I have the amount of data that would kind of cripple the cloud or cripple some sort of modern data center footprints. I can now manage that easily and simplicity, and most importantly, be predictable with my cost model. So if I'm looking 3 to 5 years out, I can know exactly what my guaranteed growth is. I know I'm not going to have the complexity of infrastructure, but most importantly, I can now every single time have predictability on the outcomes I can drive from every single initiative I have.
A lot of things in the job jar there, and we certainly do appreciate it. Patrick, top 2 priorities for you in 2025.
Yeah, as you may be aware, CMS, we help over 150 million people across our programs,
That's a
Medicare,
lot. That's a
yeah,
lot.
Medicare, Medicaid, and marketplace insurance. So that's almost half the country, right? When you think about it, right?
Yep.
So if I were to give you a blanket statement, what we plan for the future, our goal is simple. We want to serve the people better in that vein because we have 150 million that we're serving. But specific top priorities that I would point out would be one, to serve people better. We want to make it easier for them to log in and get help. So whether they're
Fair enough.
whether they're consumers, beneficiaries, providers, professional entities, or partners that work with us, they should be able to get in to where they need to get to securely, safely, and securely. So we're going to modernize our identity management solutions. The next thing is we are really laser focused on fixing the long time problem, and I know Stephen is aware of this one, but that's provider data. So right now, it's hard to find clear, updated information about doctors and care teams. So we're building a one trusted directory to help people get connected to the right people they need for the information they need and help they need. So I would say those are 2 things that are top of our box.
Very important needs, incredibly large audience. We really do appreciate it. We're going to take a short break. We're going to be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We are talking about healthcare IT. We're talking specifically about priorities in 2025. Chandra, priorities for you 2025, top 2.
Well, I'm going to echo some of the things that Patrick already mentioned. So we're trying to implement this open data format. Open is an acronym, open, public, electronic, and necessary. So it came out of an EO as well. So for all the reasons that were already mentioned, so data interoperability, data sharing, we need to have a federal data catalog and all the good things that Steve and others are already spearheading and have been working with Steve on other matters as well in the past. So so that would be a priority. And the other is kind of probably not as sexy looking, which is generally driving efficiencies up and the more robust governance in the sense that there's same business capability being delivered with the software licenses sometimes getting duplicated, underutilized and stuff like that. We're getting our arms around making sure they're all in control, and where there is not a need, we're going to we're going to have to take some actions there. So it seems like a normal, regular operational focus to do, but at this time there is an additional focus on a very intentional focus on improving efficiencies and taking care of all of those subsidiary
It
efforts.
might be regular, normal, and not sexy, but it's absolutely super important. There's no question about that, and everyone would agree with you on that.
Right.
Wes, number one priority for Red Hat 2025.
So as we're talking with our customers this year, most of our customers have realized the value of an open hybrid cloud, and they've realized the value of modern architectures, with containers and microservices and that. And they've even realized many times that they'll never have all the data in one place, and so they're adopting what Greg called transparent data architectures, where the data is just there, and it's maybe all headed under the same umbrella, but it's going to be in many physical places. And so this year, customers are really realizing the real power and the value of agentic AI and building AI agents to accomplish a lot of these tasks. And as they do that, what we're seeing is what we're really doing and working with our customers on is security around that. When you're building an agent who has maybe unfettered access to some data resource, whether it's to pull in the data to do the AI inferencing, or maybe go mutate data, I'm going to go, make an update to this patient record. Well, that has to be accountable. Things that the AI agents are doing need to be metered and monitored, and you need to apply all the same cybersecurity rules that you were applying any of the other application. So agentic AI security, I think, is probably going to be the top of mind for many, many more mature customers that are already doing AI. As you go into the rest of 2025 and in 2026, I believe you'll start to see it even in the industry. That's probably going to be a significant area of investment. Now we've built this cool capability. How do we secure it? How do we allow it to grow in a way that's responsible and isn't going to cause the kinds of problems people are worried about?
Well, we have a lot of mature customers on here, and we're going to ask them to give some pearls of wisdom to the community. I'm going to start with you, Stephen. Top lesson learned that you would like to impart on the community here.
Yeah, practice it every day. You got to work both the policy and technology angles at the same time. The proportion, is a little bit different depending on the type of project that you're working on. But if we get distracted working too heavily in tech and forget about all the other policies around, things don't turn out the way we want it. And equally, vice versa, if we're doing really hard policy work and ignore some of the technical workflow, user experience challenges, then, we don't get we get kind of a lukewarm product as well. So that would be my my top tip for the day.
Delicate balance, no doubt about it. Chandra, top lesson learned that you'd like to share?
So I got a dual sort of an audience, I would say. There's the government folks, and there's also the contractor community. So I would say for the most agencies that I'm familiar with, we have a federated model. So it's not the IT group kind of dictating terms all across. So what that leads is there's interesting creative solutions for the same business capabilities being delivered across the enterprise, but they are very different solutions. These are all very good folks, very inventive, creative people, but they are very different. So, and then eventually when it comes to managing the ecosystem, when it comes to IT, it becomes a little more challenging, and there is 5 different ways of visualizing data, 7 different ways of reporting, et cetera, et cetera. So, the federated solutioning leads to fragmented solution approach, and I think that needs to be a more regulated. I'm using it in a small letter, not uppercase, but lowercase r, where there should be an enterprise architecture view of things and provide some recommendations across the enterprise for other folks to ingest and start developing solutions for like business capability. That's one. And from a contractor community, this is not across all of contractors, but everyone is different. But I would hope that there would be a transition from just the compliance aspects. I mean, that's absolutely necessary. You need to comply to the contract language, the SOW language, and so on and so forth. but I would hope that we can go beyond that and be bold and offer creative solutioning approach. And as you provide that, and absolutely, I can assure that there will be ears to listen to you. So very willing ears to listen. So
Appreciate that. Patrick, top lesson learned you'd like to share with the community?
Well, we've learned a few big lessons and that might help others along their journey, and many that was covered today. So without repeating a lot of the comments that I totally 100% agree with, I would say that we've learned that tools work best when they are built for the people who use them. If a patient or can't use a health app, or a doctor don't understand the system they're trying to use, it doesn't matter how high tech the technology is. But when we put users first, and design tools that are easy and helpful, and more people will use them, and you get more feedback on how to improve them. And those are the tools that we found that makes the most difference. So human-centered design is critical in our build, in the service we provide. To me, in the lesson, I would say, always be human-centered in your approaches.
Very good catch there. We really do appreciate it. Bill, top lesson learned you'd like to share?
So my top observation from a few years at this is, did we do it better when we do it together? So what do I mean? So I started my federal career out in San Diego at Point Loma, in the shadow of the lighthouse at Point Loma, right? And that's a great analogy for what we do. And this panel demonstrates it, right? That could take a candle and turn it into a beacon to guide ships into the harbor in San Diego. What we do with policy, with TEFCA, I heard that mentioned, with AI, with all of these tools, is we have the ability to do things like deliver a common record, create a longitudinal record about people. And that's the other piece of this. We got to do it together, and we have to have the focus on the people that we're supporting. We have a tendency, and it's a natural tendency, to start focusing on the technology, or start focusing on the servicing organization of the VA or the DoD, or whatever your organization is. As leaders, we need to step back, focus on the Americans that we're supporting, and do it together. Because what I'm doing can't be done without the TEFCA work and the policy work and the technology work. So you need this entire panel to succeed, but we have to work together, focused on the patient.
Really do appreciate that. Great words of wisdom. We're going to have to wrap it up, but we always like to end with this last question. Greg, I'm going to start with you. The question is, let's fast forward, just 2 to 3 years from now. And let's talk about what are we going to be talking about on this show 2 to 3 years from now? What's the demand signal going to be on Pure Storage at that point in time?
Well, hopefully it'll be, man, Greg, you were right. We are really producing 394 zettabytes of data, right? Got to prove myself right. But in all seriousness, it's going to be about, hey, when we started 3 years ago around focusing on cost efficiency, about data-driven outcomes, about being able to manage data at scale, this is what we're focusing on today. And we've always focused on, we have for 15 years, is what outcome can we give to our customers, to our end users, in your cases, clinicians? How can we give that consistent experience? But at the same time, understanding that, initiatives sometimes have focus on really cool and neat and innovative stuff, but sometimes shy away from the critical stuff. And what we've always found is the data is always critical. And as agencies have evolved over time, as data sets have grown, it's always been paramount, right? It's not just about an application, it's about the data, it's about the human experience with that data. How now, patients can now interact with their own data set, have accessibility, and now bring in outside industry from an open perspective to making sure we have consistency all the way across. So I'm very excited for what's coming in the next 3 years, and I'm even more excited knowing that I'm helping our customers set themselves up for success, knowing that they have assurance in their investment they have with their data. They don't have to rebuy storage and move stuff just for the sake of moving storage. Everyone loves, migrations for the sake of migrations. We can now be focused more forward leaning and working with partnerships like I mentioned earlier, Red Hat, and other folks, of giving that experience of the data life cycle. So now, as working with CIOs, chief data officers, we can have that larger conversation of, okay, where do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now? And here, how we can give you that experience through automation, through invisible infrastructure, and give it that same experience throughout.
Really do appreciate that outline there. Wes, how about at Red Hat? Same question. 2 to 3 years from now, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, I really think that the future in our industry and across the board here with our agency partners, the future is open, the future is federated, the future is agentic, the future is secure. Those are going to continue to be very important areas to focus on as we grow and as we develop these things. That you're going to see more and more AI use cases that have matured to the point where they can be used across agencies, maybe even across industry. If Bill was talking earlier about even bringing in community care. So I think that you're going to see use cases that are so compelling and so good and so capable that they maybe are, able to be used in ways that you maybe didn't envision in the beginning. For that reason, I always say avoid the technological cul-de-sac. I hate to call it a dead end, but if you are developing something in 3 to 5 years, you may look back and say, oh, wait a minute, this was a really pretty road when we started down it, but now we can't go anywhere. We have to reverse and go build on something else. So as we're building things, we want to help our customers think about, okay, where is this solution going to be in 3 to 5 years, and how will I expand on it? How will I extend it? How will I share this with other agencies? That way, we're not in a cul-de-sac. We're on the technological superhighway, if you will.
Appreciate that, Wes. Chandra, you brought up a lot of very important activities that you're working on with a very sensitive and important community. What can that community expect to see 2 to 3 years from now?
Yeah, if I can use my crystal ball, I'm think AI is going to be super critical as an enabler for what we call a whole person care. So when we talk about mental health care, it's not just the individual; it's also all the ecosystem, the kind of the homelessness aspect of it, where they live and their church, their entire family members. It's the whole person care, and we think AI could be a huge enabler to deliver on that particular mission outcome that we pursue today, because it can look at all the different tentacles, and also more specifically, I think we've just started to scratch the surface of virtual reality and augmented reality techniques to treat patients, the mental health care patients. We already have some university studies going on in Indiana, South Carolina, and stuff like that. But I think it's going to mushroom, it's going to proliferate across in more mainstream mental health care. And I think all these techniques are going to be sort of available more broadly, I think, in the next 2 3 years. And one other thing I'm thinking is completely out of all of this, there are going to be data sets in different data islands at this time, and the correlation across those data sets are undiscovered at this time. So what may be the reason, the trigger for mental health care could be, I don't know, agriculture data, could be something that we don't even know. So that remains to be untapped, undiscovered, and not all correlations or causality. So that needs to be established. But I think we will see significant progress in that area as well.
Looking forward to the AR and VR and talking to you about that on a future show. That's an interesting angle. Appreciate everything that you're doing, Chandra. Bill, how about well, if I'm in the Air Force moving my way over as a retired now, I'm a veteran. What's that experience going to be 3 years from now? Am I going to have that golden record that we talk about?
Not only are you going to have it, I think the regulatory and technology and environment is going to create a different experience for you. And it's going to go beyond healthcare. It's going to think of it from a benefits perspective. I think you're going to see beneficiary focused operations across the federal government, across the DoD and the VA, right? And I think technology and policy are lining up to enable that, so that we're not focused on organizational operations. That has to happen. But all of that is focused on how do we help this American from, in some cases, if you were born into a military family like I was, from birth through their lifetime as a veteran, how do we manage that experience focused on that American, as opposed to from the perspective of our department or organization or bureaucracy. And I think technology is going to enable that. It's going to make us better stewards, because we're going to, of taxpayer dollars, we're going to be able to see across that continuum of benefits delivery, healthcare delivery, and we're going to do it much more efficiently. So everyone else talked about what the technology is going to specifically do, the specific problems. I think it's going to be revolutionary on how we treat people.
Fantastic. It's the ultimate blue button, Bill. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Patrick, how about at CMS? You've got half the population you're working with there. What can we expect to see 2 to 3 years from now?
Well, I'll picture something simple, secure, and smart. A system that just works for everyone and everywhere. Luke, imagine this. Imagine you wake up one morning feeling under the weather. And instead of calling, waiting on hold to get an appointment, or digging through a bunch of paperwork that you need to make your appointment, you open up your phone or your computer and you see all your health information in one place. You make an appointment, and you even get the uh, messages or suggestions that are valid on what you can do to make yourself feel better, all in a few clicks. That's the kind of digital experience that we're working towards, and I think if we come back in a couple of years, we will make some strides towards that. But to make all this work, we have to move some of our old legacy systems to cloud-based solutions that are flexible, secure, quite frankly, ready for this future I'm talking about, right? To be able to handle that demand, and that way we can build and improve and faster without being stuck in old technology. So this vision kind of is a transformation from today's kind of fragmented reactive type of systems to more of an integrated proactive ecosystem that empowers our ability to improve healthcare outcomes. So that is where we want to go in the next several years.
I really do appreciate you painting that scenario and actually referencing doing it on a mobile device, which I think is also very important. Stephen, we're at the beginning of an administration. We'll be towards the end there in 3 years from now. A lot of new policy coming into play here. What can we expect out of your organization 3 years from now? News.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'd be focused on delivering a more networked, more automated, and better coordinated kind of healthcare system. And I feel pretty safe in predicting that it will be supercharged by AI, both in terms of how we are able to access and process our own data, how our clinicians are, and then equally in terms of supporting decisions with, the kind of collective amount of information that these new tools can bring right to our fingertips.
Really do appreciate that. Panel members, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd also like to thank all of our sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.